Imagine having intelligent glass surround you in the building you occupy that can actually provide you with health benefits and make you more productive. Now imagine that same glass can enable groundbreaking solutions at the touch of your fingertip. On this episode of Connected with Laurie, you're going to hear from Rahul Bammi, Chief Business Officer at View, who will provide a snapshot of what's to come in our future and what exists today with buildings intelligence. I'm your host, Laurie Caruso. Get ready to be amazed. Rahul, it's so great to have you on the show. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to talk about what we're getting into with View. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me on the show. And I think I know where you're going. You're gonna love this.
I am going to love this. This is incredible. So future innovations and technology right here. And if we talk about that, there's no better participant and company to bring it all in for us. So we really appreciate that. But before we get into things, I have to say, and for those who are listening to the podcast, you're not really seeing the justice of what I'm seeing. Go to the YouTube channel and check it out under Connected with Laurie. But what I'm seeing is phenomenal. Talk to me a little bit, Rahul, about I'm seeing parked cars, and then above you in the window panes, I'm actually seeing a beautiful bird. I'm seeing some gorgeous coastal landscape. Rahul, I feel like I'm on vacation. Talk to me a little bit about this.
You're exactly right, Laurie. And just I'll explain this to your listeners and to the viewers. If you remember Minority Report or Blade Runner or any science fiction movies, you've seen these where windows automatically turn into screens you can interact with. This is exactly what we have behind me. We've made that a reality. So these are 8 windows that are stitched together in complete high definition. So you can see through the windows and at the same time have full content on them. And that's exactly what's playing right now is beautiful beach and then some beautiful scenery of nature. But this can be a video conference. I could be watching a football game on it. I could just have this just have it relax me. It is literally the future here now.
Well, I have to say, I'm super relaxed now, and I appreciate you for that. I now need to have this at my house, just saying. So, yeah. Rahul, talk to me a little bit about View. Let's get into some of the details about when the company started and what you're doing today.
Sure. So View's a 12-year-old company, and we started with smart glass. And people don't often use those two words in the same sentence. So let me explain what smart glass is. And first, I'll step back and say, we all know windows. We're all humans. We like a connection to the outdoors. So when you make buildings, we make them with windows so we can see outside and have a connection and get natural light. But reality is we get glare and heat, and the first thing we do is cover them with blinds. So what we did about 12 years ago when we started this was really innovate, and a lot of us came from the semiconductor world, to say, how do we solve this problem? And essentially have made smart glass. And the easiest way to describe this is to think of it as transition lenses for buildings. Just like transition lenses, what we do is when the sun's shining on a building, the windows automatically tint, and you have a comfortable view without having any heat or glare. And that's why we named the company View. We give people their view back. When the sun moves away, the windows automatically clear. So it's just like transition lenses. So you have a beautiful experience. It actually improves the health of people. There's a lot of documented scientific research around people having fewer headaches, less eye strain. Laurie, what you commented, just a much better, more calmer, stress-free experience. Productivity is higher. People actually sleep longer. They sleep over 30 minutes longer when they work in buildings with View. So a lot of experience and health benefits. We also save energy. So we keep the heat out, and we'll save up to about 20% of energy for the buildings. And a third critical point, this is what this podcast is about technology in buildings. We actually put in a full smart building platform. So if you look at the windows, every window has an IP address. When did you ever hear about windows with IP addresses? So these are all, it's a live digital skin around the building. And then it allows us to do wonderful things like what you're just seeing, which is we are piping content to it and just enjoying the experience.
Talk about a smart building. I mean, that's clearly apparent and very evident from what I'm seeing right now. I mean, just the fact that I'm looking at this, but also, I mean, you can change it up. And, one of the questions I have, we're talking about productivity. I can totally see why it would be productive, but just saying that boardroom that you're in is filled and you have that imaginary picture of that, I don't know, coastline that you're in. Do you lose people at that point, or do you change the screen and be like, okay, this is what we're talking about. This is our agenda. Does it change like that on the fly?
Of course it does. Yes, it changes on the fly. In fact, you're seeing 8 screens behind me. And I do meetings here with people where on 4 of them, I'll show content. And in the other 4, I have 4 people. So we're all used to doing Zoom meetings, especially over the last year. I'll actually get a life-size experience. And there's a 3D aspect to it. So I feel like I'm in the same room with them. And I can walk up to it. I can write with my fingers. It's a touch screen. So it actually, not only is it a fantastic experience, it's actually much more functional too. Rather than just being stuck at looking at a TV on one wall, I can walk up and talk to it.
Wow. So, I mean, it's very interactive, and that is important. I mean, especially now where you're trying to get people back to the cities, to their locations where they're working and the corporate infrastructure. You're trying to get them back to work. And how do you do that successfully with, what we've experienced with this pandemic? But to be able to do this where, you're distanced, you're sitting apart from each other, but yet you can also talk to the people life size for the most part, very interactively, when they, might not necessarily feel comfortable being in that office with you.
And this is, you hit on a key point, Laurie. I think the world looking forward is going to be hybrid. There are some people who are going to be remote, others who are in the office, and teams that are distributed and will need to work together. And one of the things we're hearing from our customers is, how do we make this as realistic as possible? So rather than having people stare at a 15-inch laptop screen in thumbnails, this is where what you see behind me, we're actually using this ourselves, where you can actually have 5 or 6 people life-size, and it feels just so different and a much more lifelike experience. You feel like you're in the room with them. And so we're working with this is what the future of offices is going to be. It's actually really about how do we give people the best experience possible, especially in the last year. How do we give them a good reason to come back? Right? If you know you can be productive at home, you want good reasons to come back, apart from the connection with other people. It enables that. And then it's also just being more responsible, so building better buildings. And we tend to think of this as buildings need to evolve with our needs, so they continue to get better every few months. And this gives us the ability to do that.
Well, I definitely see the setting for sure of being in an office space, in an office building. What other verticals, what other buildings do you occupy?
Great question. So this is really smart glass, and everything we do is applicable broadly to any building that has glass and people. So those are the only 2 requirements we have, and sunshine. So that, again, is pretty much all over the world. So now looking at what are we focused on in terms of verticals, we're obviously in offices. We do large buildings like hospitals. There's actually great research on where natural light is good for people to recover post-surgery. People actually have lower rates of depression and they recover faster. So we do hospitals. We're in airports, a few North American airports. We're in San Francisco, DFW, Boston Logan. We're doing a terminal in LaGuardia for those in New York. We're in Memphis, Seattle, so several large airports. We're in universities and engineering buildings and so on, but several universities. And we're also doing quite a bit of multifamily residential. So buildings with amazing views where residents really get to enjoy the view that they've really paid for. So all of those are successful segments for us today.
So there's hope for me in my house?
Coming soon. Yep. We don't do a lot of single family homes today, but we'll be getting there in the next few years.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. So DFW, yes, your newest airport. I did see that. That's exciting.
Thank you. And in fact, we are doing, DFW is going to be retrofitting the entire airport. So they have 5 existing terminals. all of them are going to have view. We've already in the works, we've completed 3 projects, and they're building a new terminal. And what you see behind me on these amazing screens are going to be live at DFW's newest edition in the next couple of weeks.
I can't wait to be walking down that airport aisle and being able to say, I know that company. I've seen them in action. That is exciting.
Yep. And they've built it as the gate of the future. These windows are going to, speaking about DFW, it shows you the range of possibilities with these. They're going to be using them to display content. They're going to allow kids to actually interact with it. Eventually, the plan is to use these for facial biometric recognition to check people in automatically. Indoor wayfinding. So inside the airport, it can give you contextual information depending on who you are. So just as a very specific example, if you're at a gate and you're going to Honolulu, it's going to show you some information about Honolulu, but then it can also guide you to, as the flight changes to the next one, to the next destination, it'll bring you contextual information on that. It can tell you the Starbucks has a 3-minute long line, while the next one has only a 2-minute long line. It can give you contextual information in that context. The possibilities are endless. In a place like an airport, actually emergency signage usage, where I discovered this when I was speaking to the airport. At any given point, there are people who are speaking 50 to 60 languages in an airport. So how do you communicate and which language do you pick? And you just show information visually. And that's the amazing portion of turning every single wall or glass wall into a new digital skin.
Wow. That's exciting. And you're absolutely right. The possibilities are endless. I mean, from health benefits to productivity to just being interactive, having a babysitter when I need it. Go watch View Glass. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So tell me, what's it like for a property owner to be able to, look at this concept and say, I want that at my location? How easy is it for them to retrofit and adopt this?
It's just like installing any other regular windows. So in fact, about 30% of our business is actually retrofits. And people are actually making the choice. We're doing some fairly large retrofits in New York City right now. And a couple of them are public. And what property owners find attractive is they're upgrading the building, and every property owner wants to differentiate their building to attract tenants. And what they're doing is when they put us in, they're getting rid of the blinds, opening up beautiful views. Imagine you're in Manhattan, you get amazing views of the rest of the city. They're actually improving the energy efficiency of the building. New York's passed some fairly strict laws and energy codes that buildings need to meet. They kind of get that for free at the same time. And then they're actually taking 1970s buildings and upgrading them to the 21st century by putting in these smart networks and capabilities. And I haven't talked about the smart network yet. What your listeners will resonate with is just like Tesla does over-the-air upgrades, software upgrades, and adds new features to the building, to the cars. We are doing that to buildings. So as we install these, every 3 months, we make the building smarter. And this is kind of a foundational view for us. We stepped back and looked at this and said, we spend 90% of our time inside buildings. But of all the things we use in our life, whether it's if I look at my phone versus my car versus my building's like the dumbest thing around. Like, no offense, but it is really dumb. My phone is the smartest thing around. How do we make the building more like the phone? And so that drove a lot of our thinking when we first started conceiving the smart building platform about 5 years ago. And today it's there. We have buildings that we installed 5 years ago. They literally get smarter every quarter. We do just like Tesla does. We push out a software upgrade, they gain a new capability without lifting a finger. It just happens.
Well, you had mentioned too, it's like a living, breathing organism, and you have now flesh surrounding this building, and it's, upgraded. So like flesh, for humans, every 7 years, you change it up. Buildings can be every 3 months now. That's incredible.
Yep, absolutely. And it's not just, we not only do we upgrade it and add new capabilities, we want to find new ways of interacting. So what you're seeing behind me today is the screens. I can go and touch and write on them. I can also talk to them. We've actually got voice recognition embedded in there. In future, we're going to be able to do gesture control. In fact, we already have that working where you just walk up. I'm going back to my Tom Cruise moment in Minority Report. I just wave my hands around and it reacts to it. And why not? Like, we really need to bring buildings into being completely natural interactions with us. And that's what we're doing now.
Well, it's super exciting. So we have so much more to talk about because we're going to get into where you're going for future technology. Granted, I feel like it's just starting. What you're about to do is just starting that's just the beginning moment. But I want to hear all about it. But we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back after these messages. Extenet is the leading private owner and operator of converged communications infrastructure, delivering advanced mobility and fiber connectivity both indoors and out. Focused on delivering tomorrow's connectivity today, Extenet designs, builds, and operates future-proof, ultra-fast, high bandwidth, low latency, and highly secure networks, all based on industry standards. Whether customers need fiber-connected small cells, neutral host in-building wireless networks, private wireless networks utilizing the CBRS 3.5 GHz spectrum, mobile edge computing with Extenet's Edge Hub, or enterprise connectivity solutions, Extenet has your 5G solutions covered for all of your wireless needs. For more information, visit our website at extenetsystems.com. Welcome back to Connected with Laurie. I am here with Rahul Bammi, Chief Business Officer at View. And again, I'm so excited to have you on the show. You know, we always discuss the future technology, and you sure bring it in this episode. There's no question. So we were talking about all of the benefits that View Glass provides for property owners. And, you know, we're talking about what you can do today. I am really curious what your approach is for the future. I mean, how does it get any better than this? Do you see that happening?
Oh, this is just the beginning. And,
just the beginning. I love it.
And you'd be surprised even what we're doing today. So I'll describe a couple of things. You know, the screens are visible right now. What I'm doing, which is not visible, is actually just as important. So I'll give you a very specific example. If you look at the frames behind me between the screens, and you won't even notice it unless you're looking for it, there are these sensor modules there. And what these modules do today is resonate with people, but even otherwise, from a broader perspective of health, they're measuring all the environmental variables here. So temperature, humidity, CO2, air quality, ppm levels. They actually are measuring even things like how many people are in the room, what the light levels are. And our vision around this, and we're doing this today, is to create absolutely the perfect environment for people. So if you think of the 5 human senses, light, sound, smell, and so on, I'm addressing 4 of them today. Wow. Hopefully rooms don't smell bad, but outside of that, we're addressing all of those to make absolutely the perfect light levels, the perfect air quality, the right sound levels. And it's already real today. It's invisible, but it's around us. And this is truly just experiential. So when you have all of those, you're in the best state you can be. And this just works automatically. We use machine learning. Nobody has to touch a button or do anything. It just figures out your preferences and just works. So think of it as Nest on steroids, where every single variable you can think of is completely optimized. And it learns every day. So as we get more data sets, it continues to learn. This is something that's not even the future. We're doing it today. The office I'm in is living it today.
Wow, that's incredible.
I'll move to a completely different one, and this will blow your mind. That same module actually has a 5G antenna built into it.
Whoa.
So it's actually enhancing. The building is becoming a cell tower.
Wow.
And it's enhancing the network, the signal inside the building. Some of your listeners will know this. There are like millimeter wave signals don't actually penetrate solid surfaces. They won't go through glass or drywall or anything. We're turning the building into a complete tower. So I have better signals inside and outside the building. And connectivity at this point is kind of a basic human right. We can't live without a good signal. And how many times you've been in a building where You walk to the middle of the building and it's like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? That problem just completely goes away. So these are both happening now. I'll give you another third one, which is coming in the next 18 to 24 months, is around a broader vision of compute, where every window actually becomes a full functioning computer, and your entire skin of the building is a data center.
Wow.
And so people talk about the edge cloud. We literally will have an on-premise cloud around the edge of the building. And this has huge implications. I hear this from enterprise clients all the time today, that some applications are okay in the edge. Others, I want them to be localized both from a latency perspective and from a privacy and data security perspective. And so they don't necessarily want all the data going back to the cloud and going to the cloud and back. And we will build this physically into the infrastructure of the building. So that's just a few of the applications. I'll go a step further and say the reason we built a platform and built an open platform is we're smart enough to know that there are a lot of other smart people in the world, and there are going to be applications that we haven't thought of and you and I will think of 5 years from now. So let's build the right platform and think of it really as an app store for buildings. So when the iPhone first came out in 2008, I'm sure nobody at Apple thought about Uber, that there's going to be a transportation app 5 years down the road. And that's exactly what will happen to buildings. So we're putting that platform in now, letting all of us invent the future and have the network in today and the platform in to run it. So we've created an open platform. We provide the APIs. Some of these applications like the screens and the health benefits and so on I just talked about, we'll provide. The others, as the world invents, you just literally plug in stuff and it just works. It's PoE based, it's an open platform. It literally just works.
Rahul, you had me at hello. Are you kidding? This is incredible. Oh my gosh. I thought, okay, we went through the details of, health benefits, productivity. Wow, you're blowing my mind. That's amazing. So now tell me, because I now have all sorts of questions. We're going to have another podcast just because.
Absolutely.
What does something like this cost? I mean, is it expensive?
So this is the other point. We worked very hard to make this affordable. So smart glass, yes, it is more expensive than regular glass. But what we do is, even though the glass is more expensive, in a building, we reduce the air conditioning load and you can put in smaller air conditioners or HVAC systems. So not only do you get a better experience, there's some cost savings there. As we put in a smart building network, we're eliminating about 5 other sets of cablings, because now we're putting in one network that's essentially the operations technology network for the building. And today, what happens in buildings is you install 6 sensors, there's 6 sets of wiring, there's 6 sets of labor, there's 6 security issues to deal with. So when all is said and done, if you're a property owner making a building, to incorporate View, you'll pay somewhere between 1% more for your building, maybe 1.5%. So let's say you spend 100 million on a building, you may pay 101 million. But your tenants have a better experience, your productivity is through the roof, you save energy. By the way, there's independent scientific studies that show up to 20% improvements in productivity. Property owners are actually earning 5 to 7% higher rent when they use View. Saving energy on an annual basis. So buildings are the largest consumers of energy. Buildings consume 40% of all energy in North America. We are cutting that down. So there's annual energy savings. So by the way, by the time you're done with that full analysis, it's a complete no-brainer to use it. And this is why we've been growing so fast. Our customers look at this and it's really just getting them educated about the idea. And once they understand the economics, they understand I'll pay 1% more, but I'll make 5% or 7% more every year.
Yeah.
And so the economic proposition is there. And they get to be environmentally more friendly. And climate change is a reality now. That's one of the facts that we all need to live with. And so it improves that aspect of it. The other concern, or what I always hear from property owners and CEOs when I talk to them, especially in real estate, is they say, look, I want a smart building, but I don't quite know what smart means. let's say everybody talks about smart, and I'm not a technologist, I'm a real estate operator. What is smart? So when they see this vision around what's possible, they love that, because what they really want is to build in flexibility into their buildings. They don't want to put in something and then be stuck for the next 30 years. And to our earlier conversation of designing in modularity and having it as an app store, it really resonates with everybody. That's where they look at it and say, okay, I don't know the future, you don't know the future, but whatever it is, I can use your platform for it.
Well, and I can also see too, I mean, when you're, a tenant moving into a building and you're starting to look at several buildings because commercial real estate probably has some availability right now, and you say, do you have view glass? And that building says, no, what's view glass? They're going to say, nah, we're going to go to the next building that has view glass, I can imagine. It sounds like about right?
It's getting there. And, and this is where our vision is, every modern building, at someday, every modern building will have smart glass. There's no reason not to. It's just, there are just so many benefits. And I hear this all the time anecdotally from our customers, that once they've worked in a building with view, they say, I don't want to work in another building without view. It's just, the experience is just so much better, right? We talked earlier about feeling calmer, feeling more relaxed, all of that. They just love it. And the analogy I'll give is, if you go back 90 years and imagine air conditioning, imagine trying to make a PowerPoint slide on air conditioning. Hey, I'm going to stick something in your window and you'll blow cold air and all of that. And once you actually experienced air conditioning for the first time in your life, you suddenly got it. Yeah, I can't live without this. It's kind of a very similar experience. So we see this all the time where once our customers start using us, they come back over and over. And more than half our business is actually repeat business. So once people use us, they can't live without it.
So we talk a lot about commercial real estate, and I'm curious too, what do you see as a secular mega trend in the real estate market? What are your thoughts there? Because I feel like this might be hitting on something.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. So there are, I'd say broadly, I see at least 3 big mega trends in real estate. And I think a couple of these started honestly a few years ago, and they'll continue for the next couple of decades. So the first one is just experience. And companies like Google started this in the mid 2000s, where they said, what can I do to make my offices better for my employees, right? And there's a lot of press around Google has free food and Google does this and that. They were actually very thoughtful about it to say, how do I design a space where people are operating at their best? And that broadly is what experience is in buildings. And it's something that candidly the real estate industry neglected for the longest time. They just said square feet, square feet, square feet, and location, 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 and that was it.
Yeah.
But when we step back from it, we spend 90% of our time inside buildings. Shouldn't it be at the best it can be? And that's where I think experience is a big one. And now the rest of the world is picking it up. And people are getting more conscious about, is this space healthy for me? Is this the best it can be? So I draw this analogy to organic food. If we step back 30 years ago, we just ate food because it was tasty. We didn't worry whether it was, organic food was something people in Oregon or California did, but outside of that, it wasn't a big trend. Now we all look at the quality of the food we consume, right? Is it less sugar? Is it organic? Where was it made? I think the same thing is going to happen in real estate. As we consume space, we'll start thinking about space as experience, our health, and our productivity. That's one big mega trend that I think is here to stay. And if anything, the pandemic has accelerated it, because people who were not thinking about this, even an average office user, is now suddenly thinking, hey, what's the air I'm breathing in this office? Do I want to be here? Are there viruses here that I can't see? They're suddenly thinking of all those things. So that's in that experience and health bucket. Then the next big one is really around climate change and sustainability. And I mentioned this earlier about buildings consuming 40% of energy. We simply can't continue to do that. So the innovation, technology is really about solving hard problems like that. And whether I think in some societies it's going to happen by incentives, by things like tax credits and so on. In others, it's going to happen by penalties. You're going to get penalized if your building doesn't meet certain energy codes. But one way or another, the world is going there. The buildings are just going to have to be more energy efficient. So that's a big trend, and this is pretty global now. It's happening even in North America, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in Asia. That's a big trend.
I was going to ask you too, if you've become a global company based on this experience. I know that obviously you have locations here that use View Glass in the US, but what other locations across the globe are you working in?
Yeah, so we're primarily in the US and Canada now, and that's by choice. We've done, outside of those two countries, we've done maybe about 40 buildings in the rest of the world. We're in a few buildings in Europe, in Asia, Middle East, and India. We will, over the next few years, expand internationally, and essentially, to my earlier comment on, as long as there's sunshine and people, it's a good fit. So we will have a pretty aggressive international growth strategy, but we will be everywhere. There's one other mega trend I want to mention as I was talking about it, which is kind of the technology in real estate. Most of the real estate industry leaders readily admit that real estate has lagged behind other sectors of the economy in technology adoption. And I think we're at this unique point where the hardware and electronics have come down to cost levels that make them very widely adoptable. Software has improved to a point where you can actually use machine learning and artificial intelligence to have it be much more natural in our interactions. And there's a confluence there really and the third one is awareness. So I think the adoption of technology in buildings will become key. And this was my earlier example of buildings need to become like our phones. They need to become like smartphones. And today they're really somewhat like the rotary phone, right? They haven't even advanced to the Nokias yet. They're still on the rotary phones. That is going to happen very rapidly over the next few years. And we are firm believers in all three, which is why, as we've designed our products and solutions, we improve all three. We fundamentally change the experience in buildings. We make them much more sustainable. And the technology, of course, you're seeing it. We've been talking about it. It's completely a different world. It's a different environment.
Different worlds. Wow. It's just absolutely incredible. All right. We see though with technology, and I'm curious, we have failures, right? Sometimes it's not going to work perfectly. It doesn't matter. Maybe, there's a solar glare, or we're having some issues from the outside and we can't, get the 5G network to work, something shuts down. What happens if there's technology failures? What happens to that glass behind you?
No, it's a great point. So failures will happen. And so the smart thing to do is to design in the resiliency. And what we've done, so I'll give you a couple of examples. The glass is a great example. Let's say my building lost power right away and my windows are tinted. We've thought of this. The windows will stay tinted for a while. The reason that's important is it'll keep the building cool precisely when you don't have air conditioning. So that's the beautiful part of it. It'll actually stay completely protected. When you're looking at the other technology solutions, I talked about our smart building platform. We've actually approached this the way a technology company would, not the way a real estate company would. So it's fault tolerant. There's redundancy designed in. We have a fiber backbone that comes into the building. We've actually done a few buildings where we've put solar panels so we can be completely grid independent if we need to be. And I think that's just smart design. We can put in certain design principles that take care of those. And we've frankly had the luxury of doing that because we designed it from the ground up. We're a tech company. We looked at this and said, I don't have an existing system I need to work with. What's the most intelligent solution I can design from a user perspective or a customer perspective? And that's why it honestly resonates so well with them.
Well, it's important. I mean, like you said, just to have the ability to have what you're experiencing behind you. Yes, definitely there could be some sort of failure behind it, but being able to get back to work and not have any production loss or anything like that is key and critical. So I'm also curious, one last effort here from a question perspective from this pandemic piece. Do you see it changing? Do you see this actually helping? I know that this is definitely a help for getting people back into the office, but what other comforts that people can expect by getting into this office the way it's presented with View Glass?
Sure. So a few things. One, we've already seen this where some customers and some of our clients are now starting to return to work. And what they're seeing is their employees want to be assured that the workspace is healthy. So a lot of the sensor solutions I talked about in ensuring a healthy environment, we've actually designed, we have an app that every employee can have in a company, and it tells you when was the place last cleaned, what's the air quality right now, what's the CO2 level, how many people are in a building. So it can help you maintain social distancing rules and so on. But people are just much more aware and sensitive to the health aspects of their building. So that's something we've enabled. And by the way, we started eating our own dog food last September. It shows you the power of the platform. Once the pandemic happened, we designed it for our own building in the space of 3 months, implemented it. Just in my building here, we've gathered 3 billion data points. That shows you the power of using machine learning to do that. So that helps. The second broader one, and you touched on this, is people want a reason to come back. They actually want the space to be something they're excited about. And there are a lot of people who are just eager to get out of their bedrooms and come back to work, but they also want it to be something that gives them, that's something compelling. And we're hearing this more and more from people to say, I don't know what the future of real estate will be. Maybe fewer people come back. It's even more important for me as a property owner to build better. The world has fundamentally changed with the pandemic, whether we like it or not, it has changed. And they're like, I need to build better and have a higher quality of space. We love that because we are all about improving the quality of space and the human experience in buildings. In fact, if you look at our mission statement, we basically say we want to create delightful human environments. This has been our mission for the last 7 years. So we love that. And it's completely in our wheelhouse.
I love that. Delightful experience for all, just because of ViewGlass. Rahul Bammi, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate it. And I have to say, though, you've got so much more in store for us. We've got to have you back on the show here soon.
Absolutely. I enjoyed the conversation, Laurie. I love it. I'd love to get back together again. This is fantastic.
Excellent, Rahul. Well, don't go vacation too much. So behind you, please don't. You need to get to work.
Thank you. But I get my vicarious thrills every hour. So.
Every hour. I'm just going to stay online with you just so I can as well. How's that?
You're welcome to. I love that. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show. We will see you later. Interested in being part of our show or advertising on our podcast? Contact us at info@fifthgenmedia.com for more information. We'd love to be a part of your success.